Thank you. Thank you very much. I should go now. Now that I'm in advantage. So, my name is Octavio Mas-Arocas. I'm the guest conductor for this concert. Conducting your wonderful Clinton Symphony Orchestra, which is just fantastic, and it's just so impressive that you have this orchestra here. And I am so glad that I was asked to just come and just work with them. And I wanted to thank you, Maestro Snyder, for everything you've done for the orchestra and in the entire region, and of course for inviting me. It's amazing what the work that is done. So thank you. So again, it's just I think it's just such an incredible situation that you have this orchestra in here. So kudos to all of you. So I'm not much of a lecturer, even though I just teach at the college. What I do is just mostly I conduct orchestras. So, but I was asked to talk a little bit about the program and a little bit about the pieces that we are doing and so on. So I think that, as you can tell by my Texan accent, I'm not from Texas. I'm from Spain. Spain, Europe, not Spain, Texas. So if you ever just don't understand something that I said, please ask. It wouldn't be the first time that I say something and then when I ask someone, they were like, what? It's just like an entire hour passed and just no one understands what I say. So I'm not afraid of being that. So the program today is just, I think it's just so fascinating how the two pieces come together so nicely. It's not only because there are two Russian composers, right? And one, that's the first thing that people might just make the connection, the link. The things that link the pieces is the first thing is going to be the Russian composers. But then it is also the character of the music. And I will go even farther into as how both pieces are very descriptive without actually just being descriptive. And let me just clear that a little bit. Rimsky-Korsakov, while just the piece seems to be like very description of a tale or just different tales, he actually just didn't mean to just be such a descriptive piece. It was just he just like painted more like scenes out of the famous Arabian Nights, and then just give some titles for the audience to just make up their own stories with the music. And so well, anyway, so the connection is just like the two composers are Russian. It's very music is just that I think is very descriptive, and it's also just about how the composition styles itself and the music itself. It's just very melodic, rooted in beautiful melodies, also rooted also in colors of the orchestra, and of course virtuosism. The virtuosism of the piano concerto is very clear. But the orchestra piece, the Scheherazade, is also a virtuosistic piece, which with an array of different orchestration instrumentations, he made this just great piece, like it's a showcase for the entire orchestra. Anyway, so if we just go into just like each of the pieces, I will start with Scheherazade with the Rimsky-Korsakov. He composed the piece in 1888, and he premiered the piece himself. It was a success right from the very beginning. The Korsakov, Rimsky-Korsakov, it is well known for many things. In his life, his personal life, he was attached to the Navy, to the and he always wanted to explore. He always wanted to just go overseas and see things. So he early on just registered for the Navy, and he went abroad on this big trip. And then when he came back home, he just never left again. He had enough, but all those trips just had a huge influence in his life. He was also very taken by tales, and his music, it is just in many pieces he depicts many tales, Russian tales, Oriental tales, all kind of tales, as this one just as you can see in this piece. He, for big part of his life, he was almost a self-trained composer, very imaginative, and he was part of the Five, which was the five very famous Russian composers that had a group that promoted classical music being rooted on the folklore of the Russian folklore. So he was just a part of that, but then he also just did his Western music studies and just embraced Western music, and he actually just became a teacher of harmony and counterpoint and just composition and so on. And so he had the best of each world. So so much that his orchestration classes and his orchestration book is still today just looked at as, you know, a masterpiece of the genre of the orchestration. So, and with that I mean, with orchestration I mean the art of combining instruments. It's just not only just when you create a melody, like how you are going to distribute the melody, who is going to play that melody, who in the orchestra, how you are going to combine all the instruments in the orchestra to create colors, which is very, I think is very abstract. When musicians, we talk about colors, it's colors, because we don't see anything in music, right? But we tend to just come back to that word, to colors, because there is these special sounds that are very, the best way to describe are through colors. And to create these different colors, composers tend to just put sounds, to organize the sounds with all the instruments in the orchestra. So some composers are very coloristic, like Rimsky-Korsakov, that comes with very imaginative, very curious pairing of instruments, and creates this just like atmospheric sounds, and just the very strong sound, very strong quality sounds that are like that are incredible. Like some others are more stoic in their way to do it, such as strings, winds, and just they are darker in the sounds. So this is one of the things that Rimsky-Korsakov was a master of, the orchestration, and many composers have, and we still just go back to his book, orchestration book, after more than 100 years, to just learn about orchestration. So, like I say, he was always fascinated about tales, travels, and so on. That it was just obvious that he will go on to do something like Scheherazade. So he had, before he encountered for the first time Oriental music on its pure state, he had taken melodies and harmonies from French books, and he was just fascinated about that. So he created his own Oriental melodies and harmonies, and then he had the opportunity to go to Istanbul and with his family, and he was just in awe. Like I can imagine, like at the end of the 1800s, going to Istanbul, and just, you know, like right now we have radio, we have TV, we have you know, you have your phone. You want to hear how a melody is, you just go into the phone and you have everything in there. But he was chasing those sounds. He was just reading about them. He was just like playing melodies that someone else who probably was not, they were probably French composers, had just made up. But finally, he had the opportunity, and he was just lost in the streets of what is now Istanbul. Can you imagine like what shock that was for him? Like the smells of the coffee, like the smells of the food around, people shouting, like people playing the instruments, people playing melodies. Just he was like, oh my God, what is this? And so immediately he started sketching things, and he said, I want you to just write something like this. And using all this that I learned. His friend Borodin, and one of the members of the Five, died, and so he left one of his pieces uncompleted, the Prince Igor. And so Korsakov, who just completed many of these other composers' pieces and orchestrated some many of these pieces, he just took the task. He was just very close to Borodin to complete the piece. So this piece actually it was like a faith about charts and this and like a, very oriental, so it was just the definite input that he needed to actually compose his own piece. So that was just the definite impulse that threw him to just compose a piece based on Oriental themes. And of course, the Arabian Nights were, in Western countries just for centuries then. It has been for centuries now, fascinating people all over. So he was fascinated by that, so he just took that, the Arabian Nights, the 1001 Night tales to compose this symphony. This symphonic work. So everybody knows about the Arabian Nights, right? So the composer himself, the only thing that he actually just wrote is just what we all know, but I think it's a very good synopsis, so let me read to you in the score. This is the score. So the Sultan Sarbiar, convinced of the falseness and faithlessness of woman, I didn't say that, vowed to kill each of his wives after the bridal night. The Sultana Scheherazade, however, saved her life by interesting the Sultan in stories he told him during 1001 Nights. That reminds me with my kids, actually. In his curiosity for the sequels to hear the stories, the Sultan postponed Scheherazade's execution from day to day until he finally abandoned his sanguinary resolution altogether. In her stories, Scheherazade frequently include the verses and songs of the poets and interlaced her narratives of marvels and adventures so as to link them together. So this is what we all know, right? The Sultana telling stories for 1001 Night until the Sultan say, okay, I think I love you now. I don't have to kill you. I wonder what happened if she continued telling stories or not. I just always wonder about that. But so of course there are a lot of stories in there. So Korsakov really wasn't intending to give, to compose a description of one of or four of those stories. He was just actually trying to give us scenes of that, kind of like flavors, colors, right? And so at the beginning, even at the beginning when he published the score, there were no titles. It was just one of his students that said, why don't you just give titles to this so people can, just relate to them and just they understand what's going on. And so he gave titles. The titles are the first movement, the Sea and Sinbad's Ship. Second movement is the Calendar Prince. The third is the Young Prince and the Young Princess. The fourth is Festival of Baghdad. The ship breaks against a cliff surmounted by a bronze horseman. These are not actually titles of stories. These are titles, again, of scenes. So he came with his titles, but the titles are not titles of the stories. So, and actually in the second edition of the piece, he took out the titles. So my score, the score that I conducted today, doesn't have the titles. I had to write the titles myself. and it does give you, I would say, a direction of where to think or where the music is going, and it kind of like directs you into what to think about the piece, right? So, but he doesn't really want you to just like, he's not telling you this is what's happening, this is it, da, 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 da. He's opening your imagination, let's put it that way. So, the episodes are unconnected episodes, and like I said, they are images of, you know, colorful, descriptive, and just very flavored, and all these things that we thought that Rimsky-Korsakov was very good into, just created these just beautiful sounds. And so, but there are a couple of things in the piece that happen that are very special. One is just he did allow to us to think that Scheherazade, the female amazing storyteller, that is the violin, is the solo violin. So you will hear right from the very beginning, right from the introduction, a very famous violin solo, played by our concertmaster, and that violin solo is in every one of the movements. It appears all the time in many different moments, and so that's the lady, the Sultana, just telling the stories, and you will feel that it has this feeling of peacefulness, but also sensual touch into the music. You feel the Oriental part, but and in a very calm situation, and it almost sexy, I would say. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like it's so well done. And even though he didn't, Rimsky-Korsakov didn't really say confirm the association with the other theme, we think that the Sultan theme is obviously is the opposite, right? A little angrier, more like yeah. And you hear right from the very beginning, pam 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 pam, very solemn, like don't mess with me, solemn. And that is the same thing that theme, Lili Valier, appears through all the piece. So I think it's just very cool to me. Like I mean, like I say, I don't think that he just meant to do a description, and I love when composers do that. That say, yeah, this is more or less this, but it's not that. Now you think about it and just come with your idea, you know, with the open the possibility for you to actually just like create your own story, which is really cool. So, but I feel like the very beginning here starts with the theme of the Sultan, bam, very strong, bam, being the entire orchestra, bam, bam, very loud, and then through the entire piece, in every movement, it appears again. Some moments, like in the third movement, in the second movement, it starts just at the very end, kind of like going slow, like calm, but getting angry until it just explodes. And then later Valier is almost like tentative, like very tentative there. To the very end of the piece, when the melody of the Sultan appears, but it's just much more mellow, in much more legato part way, with the lower strings, but just kind of like mellowing his anger and just giving way to the Sultana, right? The violin solo, and just finally just a chord that puts everything together, kind of like putting everything in a piece, and then we finish the piece. So it's just, I think it's beautiful. I think it's just the way that he does all this without giving you the exact description of what's going on. That is guiding you through this, and kind of like let you just have your own thing. I mean, it's just very, if you think of the title, like I say, like the last title, Festival at Baghdad, the sea breaks against the cliff, surmounted by a bronze horseman. I mean, you can hear In my mind, there are moments in the last movement that I can hear the how do you say, pirates screaming and just people running around. It's just crazy. I was so curious about that because there is I remember when I was just studying this, I was just looking at some videos and there is a video in which in this last movement, the conductor asks the musicians to yell. So like if they were pirates, bah, 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 and so he cues them, and then it's very accurate, and they it's just like wow, it's just great. Don't worry, your musicians are not gonna yell today. If you want to yell, please. But anyway, so I think that it is just like a wonderful piece that. Without being descriptive, opens the door for you to just get into that world. It's just like, I think it's one of the pieces that captures the oriental flavor really well. But one of the greatest things, like I said before, about this piece is the orchestration part of that, and how in itself, if you just take the score, and you just study the score, it's just a book of an orchestration book. That's the marvelous things about the piece. And we can say everything about we want about the piece, orchestration and so on, but at the end, it comes to be like, it is just a masterful piece. It's just beautiful, extremely well written. It just have these amazing melodies that you're gonna be singing for the entire week. And then and it stacks with you, and it just touches your heart, and just it wows you in some moments, just really exciting some moments. And if we wouldn't have anything attached to it, if we don't have anything about the Sultana, the 1001 Nights, whatever, if we don't have any of that neither, it would still be a great piece, because that's where it's just beautiful, amazing music. So that is the Korsakov, and then we run the concert with the Sergei Rachmaninoff concerto for piano number 2, which Rachmaninoff was also Russian. No, but what I said before, he was also just a great melodist, if that makes any sense. A composer that mostly, I would say, writes amazing melodies. Like he can go forever, and his melodies are like everybody just like emerged with them. It's just they're amazing melodies, and so these melodies were so fine and were so how they say, attractive to people that this is some of his pieces, but especially now that we are talking about the second concerto, some popular artists have quoted the concerto. So I don't know if you know the song "All by Myself." So that's this concerto. And there are so many other pieces that are based on the concerto, on the melodies. I mean, when you even if you don't know the concerto, if you have not just played the concerto from the beginning to the end, you're gonna be in the concert and you say, "Oh, I know this. Oh, I know that. Oh, I know that." And because it's very beautiful, and it's just amazing how he just created that. So, believe it or not, I mean, Rachmaninoff was a giant in the musical scene almost from the very beginning. Since he was very, very, very young, he was just a piano prodigy, and he was a composition prodigy as well. So before he graduated, with 19 years old, he already had just composed many, many pieces, and some that were already considered like master pieces, and he had performed all over. He was just one of the best pianists that ever lived. So, but actually, at that point, when he was 19 years old, he composed his first symphony. I don't know what you were doing when you were 19.
Not that.
I wasn't doing that either. So. I know, and I'll tell you what I was doing. Okay, so, so they say that the conductor who was also a very good composer and a teacher, Glasunov, was actually a very bad conductor. And somewhere I read that he was actually drunk. So the premiere was just a disaster. And just sometimes you just wonder, like, there are so many orchestra pieces or pieces in general that are a disaster in the premiere, and you wonder if they were a disaster of a piece, or if it was a disaster of first performance. And so this was one of the cases. Like, I mean, Rachmaninoff at 19, everybody just peeled him off, like, oh, yeah, just this disaster piece, this concert, blah, blah, blah. And he was just very personal. I mean, imagine that you are 19 years old, and all your life have been just success after success after success. And then you've dedicated a lot of time to compose and just perform and all that. So this was a broken moment for him. That broke his heart, and he just feel completely out of it. I mean, he tried to continue composing, but for 4 years or so, he was just in complete disarray. He was just depressed, and of course, the performance was going so well, but the composition after that, he just couldn't do it. So he started attending psychologist. I don't know if it's psychologist or hypnotist or something of those sorts. It was Dr. Nikolai Dahl. So, I mean, the doctor really tried to just hypnotize him? Like, hypnotize him. Hypnotize. Thank you, hypnotize. My English from Texas, you know. Thank you. Hypnotize him. And, you know, talking about culture, talking about things. In essence, it was a very nice, you know, conversation, a very nice therapy for him. And so this was the piece that he composed after all that. And he dedicated the piece to Dr. Dahl. Of course, the piece was a smashing success. And he still continues struggling, even though his pieces were so successful. He continues struggling with composition, with performance. He moved out of Russia. He just first moved to Germany for a little bit, then he moved to United States. He lived in LA, and so he had all this international amazing career, and just like they were like, because his music was rooted more into what you would consider a romantic style, very melodic style, like I say. So there were a lot of detractors of his music, but at the same time he was just very successful as a pianist. And then, you know, he tried in the studio and just so on. So all his life was just a complete struggle between like him just not feeling appreciated and feeling very appreciated. And at the end, you know, I think that his music is like the same as the Rimsky-Korsakov. It's beautiful, amazing music that doesn't need anything behind. It's just like, of course, it's just he wrote music for himself, and he was a virtuoso of the piano. So the piano concerto is a virtuosic piece. And our soloist, David Kim, is just phenomenal. I know you heard him before, but he's doing just a fantastic job in this piano concerto, which is, again, it's just one of the masterpieces of the piano repertoire. Yeah, and overall, I think that the program feels really romantic, in essence, of what we are doing. Like so much, not the same, but so many more things in common. And I think it's really just an incredible way to just bring everybody together. So I love these two pieces, and I hope that you like them too. I would, like I said, just not much of a talker. I just would like to just go to prepare the concert for a little bit. but I would like also to open the door for questions and about anything. So questions about this, and you don't know me. You probably have my bio there, and you can, if you want to ask questions about me, who's this guy? You know, like you go ahead and just and ask. So
Rimsky-Korsakov, an instrumentalist.
Yes, well, he was a pianist too, but he also, that's fun. One of the funny things that about that is that he was, like I said, he was in the army, he was in the Navy, and then just he retired for that, but he stayed in the army as a supervisor of army bands. And then they kind of like, they cut the position in one point, but he was a supervisor of army bands. So there is this just one of the most amazing composers ever, and he was supervising the army bands. So that's actually really, that was really good for him. And he said, well, that you are supervising these wind and brass instruments that give you a lot of information about those wind and brass instruments that just they don't give you in the conservatory. So that's one of the reasons why he could probably experience things with the wind instruments that other composers might not have been able to do. So that gave him a complete different view of all the instruments, which I think is really cool. Yeah.
What is your instrument?
My instrument is the orchestra. I was born on this is very funny. Well, I think it's funny. I was born in Spain, in a, like I said, my Texan accent. Okay, that's an old joke now. Okay, in Spain, in a small town. So the town is close to a bigger town that is Valencia. Valencia is in the southeast. So if you look at Spain, like Barcelona is here, Valencia is here, is in the Mediterranean. And so very close to Valencia, in a small town of 10,000 inhabitants. And so this 10,000 inhabitants town is very famous for two things. One thing is music. So we have two bands, like huge bands, like enormous bands, like 160 musicians in each band. But each band has like youth band, youth orchestra, choir. They have the cinemas each, like they have like their own halls. It's just, this is only 10,000 town inhabitants. So what happened is just, it's kind of like another tale, another story. It's kind of like the Romeo and Juliet. It's kind of the Montaigne and the Capulets. Like half of the town belongs to one band, the other half belongs to another band, and we fight like crazy. It is like, oh, my band is better, no, my band is better. And then we have all these competitions. Like, I mean, when they play together, there is one concert a year in which they play together. Well, don't play together, never, come on, play together. They share the stage, meaning one band plays first, then the second band comes and plays second. And that's called the mano a mano, which is hand by hand. It's just once a year, and it draws people from all over the region, because it's kind of like seeing just two, how do you say, like enemies from all time just having a fight to see who's better. So that's what we do. And it's very funny because, you know, you see the stage is an outdoor stage, and it's great, and it's very nice. And so you see all these people coming, just setting up this, you know, like 160 chairs and stands, instruments. They set everything. They finish. They take everything out because they are not gonna serve their chairs, and then the other people put the chairs. And you see this auditorium is like almost 1,000 people. They are, I don't know, 3,000 chairs, and just you see like these people that just is in the first part of the concert, and then they left, and then another just other people. It's incredibly bizarre. Anyway, yeah, if you go home and you go home and, you know, with your girlfriend, and you just go and say, Papa, this is my girlfriend. Wait a second, are you just the daughter of so-and-so? Yes. No, you don't come to my house. This is very hard. Anyway, so I was born in that town, so I don't remember in every house, in every family there is musicians. There's just like, I think it's the second larger employment is music. Not in the town. We just live there. We just learn music and then we just live. So, but I was born in there. So since I remember, I was going to be a musician. No one would ask me, where are you gonna be when you grow up? No one said, do you want to be an astronaut? You know, are you gonna be a firefighter? No, it just was like about what instrument are you gonna play? That was the question. And since I remember, my father was like, yeah, you are gonna play horn, and you're gonna play horn in a military band, and that's it. And I was like, yeah, horn, military band. And then when they give me the instrument, I came home with a trumpet, and then I became a conductor. So. My father probably is short, anyway. So my first instrument was the trumpet, but I also play violin and play piano. Violin was for learning the instrument, and the trumpet was my instrument. I finished my master's degree in trumpet, and before I decided to just become a conductor. I was already just playing professionally, and it's kind of like I said, it's all because of this town, because we had the best teachers. I mean, I didn't realize when I was 8 years old, and the first teacher that just was telling me how to play the trumpet is one of the best teachers in Spain. And I took that for granted, that just people were like playing the instruments. We live in buildings. In Spain, people mostly live in buildings. And I took for granted that everybody in every building in the world, there were like musicians playing like all the time. It's just like, you walk through the streets, you hear instruments. So, that was my life. And so, yeah. So that's where I grew up and how I decided to be, the instrument was the trumpet. I say my town is famous for two things. The second thing is famous in the entire world. And I don't know if I should feel, how do I feel about that, but anyway, it is just, we have a festival in which we fight with tomatoes for 1 hour.
Oh, I've heard of that.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is my town. So, again, I don't know how to feel about it, just like, my town is famous because we fight with tomatoes. But it's true. And people from all over the world come to this town, and it's like 60,000 people throwing tomatoes to each other. In this town of 10,000, it's just like, so there is people who are there. I mean, you learn. I mean, I've done it. People are telling me, do you do it? Of course I did it. When I was 8 years old, 9 years old was the first time I think I did it there. And I still remember to this day, because actually it's just like they joke in the family that the first time that I was just I went there with my friends, and one of the first tomatoes that came, this lady that was just probably 1 year older than me, just took the tomato, throw it, and just hit me in the eye. And I think that I sprinted home like crazy, like mama, mama. And that's the joke. The running joke is my family. But there is something about, I mean, and probably we should be closing, but there is something about that bizarre, is a very bizarre, festival in which everybody's throwing tomatoes to each other, and you say like that, and it's very bizarre, and it really is bizarre, but you have thousands of people there, people from all over the world, people from all backgrounds, people from all, talking different languages, with different cultural backgrounds and ideas, political ideas, wherever. It doesn't matter who you are. When you are in the middle of that throwing tomatoes to each other, it really doesn't matter. So it's really, I mean, it's just like it's bizarre and it's funny, but there is something with that, in that bizarre environment that happens that tie us all together. So I mean, there is nothing but you and just people throwing tomatoes to each other. No worries. I'm not touching anyone, no one is touching me, and we are all coming together as human beings to experience that. I know it's very bizarre. When it finished, they throw 3 firecrackers, boom, 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 and everybody, all these 60,000 people know that they need to stop. They immediately stop, and it's just kind of like in those minutes after that, it's just everybody feels, okay, we've done something that is just unique. It's very special. I might not do this, like people who is coming from Australia, I might not do this in my entire life again. And they are like people helping each other. They go to the same place to clean. They just serve this joy they serve everything. They help people, and it feels like within that bizarre environment, that bizarre, very bizarre event, that humans are nice, humans are good, and that we can become nice and good to each other. So I like, again, in this bizarre environment, you can feel the humanity in people and how we all come together. And I think that it comes very. You should go and see it and experience it. But it comes very similar. It's very similar to actually when we are in a concert. So you are in a concert. You have all these players, as a conductor, you have all these players there. I have all this audience there. I don't know what's your background, I don't know, and even so, I don't care. We are sitting there, we are expressing this music, we are reacting to each other, like the orchestra, the music reacts to you, you react to the music, we feel it. And there is this unique, amazing, and very special situation that happens when music just embraces us all together, and then you can feel that there is, we are here in this world for more than just like the complainings and everything that happens during our life, and that we have hope to be the human beings that we that we deserve to be to each other. And I feel that there is a really great connection that happens in the hall. Like that 1 hour, 2 hours of a concert is just one of the most human experiences that I always ever experienced. So I hope that you feel that today. And thank you very much for having me. And this is a great orchestra. You should be very proud. Thank you, Maestro. Thank you.